Civil war continues to brew in the MAGAverse as the more bigoted base of the movement is not happy with the tech bro billionaire wing of the movement who want to continue to benefit off H-1B visa labor. And as I always say, Republican infighting is my favorite sport. I can't wait for it to make its Olympic appearance. So let's just jump right in and see what context we can add.
H-1B visas, that's not what it's about. It's about taking American jobs and bringing over essentially what become indentured servants at lower wages. This thing's a scam by the oligarchs in Silicon Valley to basically take jobs from American citizens, give them to what become indentured servants from foreign countries, and then pay them less. Simple. To let them into through the golden door.
Now, Bannon's comments align him with people like the far-right activist Laura Loomer, who has been bashing Musk for days now on this and is even accusing him of censoring her on his own platform. She is the anti-immigrant Trump ally who is now claiming that her blue checkmark was removed, her subscriptions were deactivated, her character limits for tweets and posts on X were limited for what she says is, quote, raising concerns and speaking the truth about the technocratic takeover of our country in the White House.
Now, this is one of the rare times you will hear me say that Bannon was right in that it's unfair to pay these immigrants lower wages. Often this is held above them as, if they lose their job, if they can't work, then they lose their visa. So they have no leverage in negotiating wages or anything like that. This is a problem as it's essentially slave labor and it should be addressed. This should be fixed. It's part of the system that needs rework the most if we're talking about our immigration system. Notably, it's something Republicans also never talk about, but Bannon doesn't actually care about this. This is why MAGA never talks about it. It's just whatever he can point to grow the tent of people who will be against this, so it will benefit his larger just anti-immigrant goal here, right? He wouldn't care if these immigrants were paid the same. It would just be the next excuse he could go to. Oh, they're taking jobs from Americans, despite us literally not having the skilled labor to fill these jobs. But the Laura Loomer part here is funny. Elon is touted as this bastion of free speech, and now multiple huge right-wing accounts are being deplatformed and essentially shadow banned for coming out against Elon. So they're now able to see what lefties have been dealing with all year on X while they've been touting it as a free speech platform. And it's also funny seeing that side of MAGA realize they've been duped and lied to, and that, damn, MAGA is actually the party of big tech and the elites, and we're not relevant in this base anymore. Like, all these tech bro billionaires Trump surrounded himself with don't actually have their best interests in mind, America's best interests in mind. It's a funny civil war just unfolding right before our eyes.
Trump himself, who is the king of weighing in on things online, has not done so.
Because he doesn't have a good answer to this problem, right? He's got a very tight, small coalition as presidents go, and there's just not a lot of give in it. I mean, it's symbolized by the fact he's going to have a 2-seat, maybe with this new defection, a 3-seat majority in the House. If you have 3 or 4 or 5 Congress people who agree with Laura Loomer and Steve Bannon, then you can't get any legislation done that Elon Musk wants. And so he's stuck in this hard place where he hasn't quite yet figured out how to get peace amongst the various Trumpy tribes back together.
And I think some credit here should go to the left strategy of largely touting Elon as the shadow president and being handed the reins. I think it's made the other half of the MAGA base extra paranoid that, maybe Elon does have more control than we're comfortable with. Maybe he does have more say than our side of the base does, as they're lashing out on him for his immigration take here, despite him not even being an immigration advisor to Trump. So his opinion should not really matter to the party in that regard. But yet the Loomer wing wants Elon booted just because of this, which goes to the point being made in this clip. Trump has a remarkably weak coalition that he has to try and govern on, with the majority of only a few seats, like in the House and the Senate. It's even thinner in the House, but in the Senate, it's pretty thin as well also. And his party is made up largely of these two contradictory wings, kind of like libertarian conservative, but even more so, big tech elites and those who are just anti-establishment, where when something like this happens, they're often on opposite ends. It'll be hard for Trump to walk the line and pass something as if to get support from both of these wings with these concurrent opinions when, say, if 5 members from either side, 2 members from both sides defect, whatever legislation he's trying to pass is effectively dead.
The problem on the Republican side right now, the MAGA Republicans, is they've got three strains. The one strain is sort of the economically anxious, the people who kind of could go either way. They just want lower grocery prices, more affordable housing. They thought Trump might be the guy. You've got these ideologues like Laura Loomer who are sort of culturally anxious, right? They don't want an America that's going to become browner. They're trying to preserve kind of a white Christian heterosexual culture that they believe is the core American culture and ought to be the one that exists. Now, Laura Loomer ignores when she says Europeans built the country. She ignores the African slaves. She ignores the Chinese immigrants who did the railroad. She ignores the people from Mexican heritage in the Southwest who worked and the Native Americans who were here first. She ignores everyone else who was in the country. So the problem is, they've got to figure out how to Trump has got to figure out how to hold these people together. I just don't know if it's possible, because at the end of the day, the only way the country grows is if we do have more immigrants who come into the country who help populate and move the country forward, and that we make it more diverse.
And he's exactly right here. Immigration fuels economic growth. This is indisputably a fact and applies to any country all throughout history. It's something that we massively have always benefited from. And data also shows that diversifying workplaces, diversifying boards, diversifying CEOs, owners, all lead to better outcomes for everyone that is involved, which is why I say that the right's position on immigration isn't economically centered. There's not an economic argument for it. It's culturally. What a lot of people are scared about is becoming a minority in this country. If we're talking about like white voters who predominantly make up the MAGA base, possibly because of, or I would even say probably because of how they've seen minorities get treated in this country. Whether they would admit that or not is another thing. But this culture focus on all of these issues, it's not going to be enough to secure the base that is just the economically anxious voters that he's speaking to here. Those who voted Trump in 2024 because they wanted lower grocery prices aren't going to vote Republican in 2028 because Trump got trans girls out of badminton, right? And that's something that I'm hopeful for looking forward for the Democratic Party. Trump probably will have an even rockier time governing this coalition than his last one, and then it'll fall apart even harder, right? So that'll give Democrats the chance to slip in right there and really pick up the pieces, not only that they've lost, but then that Democrats will lose. And I'm assuming the only parts of his constituency Trump will be able to keep here are those who are culturally anxious, culturally invested in the things he's saying, as the cultural focus seems to be his only concern. I mean, he's already walked back being able to lower grocery prices and such. So the 2028 shakeup of the electorate will be interesting. At the very least, Republicans will be back to being the party of the, I mean, they've always been the party of the wealthy, but like they won't be probably won't be able to masquerade as the party of the worker anymore, as Trump's tax cuts will solidify them as voting for them, and his inability to lower grocery prices will lose the blue collar voters that he did build on this time. They'll have the bigots who will always just vote for whatever party's harder on immigration, doesn't believe in racism, these kinds of things. And as Trump leaves, I'm sure they'll re-get the religious vote, like in swaths, in terms of like they haven't had it. They've won the religious vote, but haven't had it to the same effect with Trump, which leaves Democrats with a pretty unbeatable coalition, if we're being honest, if they just lean into economic populism, stick to the defense of minorities, women's reproductive rights, and those oppressed by these kinds of social issues. And we could be set for a long time to come. Now, or, you know, we could continue to lean into this corporate Democrat, Biden, Harris, take from the middle type, candidate, and who knows what happens to the electorate after that.